We want to know, marriage and divorce, do we give up too easily? Send your answer to 31403. Text yes, or you can text no. You can also vote on the homepage of our website. We'll have the results for you later in this broadcast. Well, our Facebook page is already getting a lot of your comments on this topic. Shell Tuttle says a lot of people take marriage for granted and don't take it seriously anymore. Melissa Reeves feels that sometimes it's a matter of realizing that no matter how hard you work, the two of you just were not meant to be. You can leave a comment of your own on our Facebook page. This is a very interesting topic. Well, to answer some questions you may have on your mind about marriage and divorce, we brought in our psychotherapist, Mary Jo Rapini, and local divorce attorney, Nancy Rommelmann. Mary Jo, let me start with you. It seems that in the past, people were more committed to the institution of marriage, and now it seems that some young people seem to get married with the attitude that, hey, if it doesn't work, we can always get a divorce and start over.
That's really true, Mike. And what's happened is because divorce is happening to many people, 50% of all people, and it usually happens in the first 2 years of marriage, that's the most likely time. Other couples talk and they become comfortable with the idea that if it doesn't work out, we will get a divorce. And divorce is really it's a very difficult thing to go through. A lot of people suffer, children suffer, and there's nothing funny about it. When I was watching those videos about divorce, that's not how it is in real life. And I think people have a misconception of how terrible divorce really is.
Well, I think some of that is gallows humor, Mary Jo. Nancy, the divorce attorney, divorce almost seems to have lost some of its stigma that it had in the past when people saw it as a huge personal failure and one that you had to avoid at all costs.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, and I also agree with Mary Jo. People are going through so much pain in their marriage, but what they don't understand a lot of times is they're exchanging one pain for another pain, because going through a divorce is a very painful process as well, so they're exchanging one set of problems for another set of problems.
It's always something. Well, here are the top 10 reasons couples get divorced. And Mary Jo, this is not the David Letterman top 10. This is according to the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control. Number 1 reason, infidelity, breakdown in communication, abuse, some financial issues, sexual incompatibility. Now, this list goes on and on. We have the second page as well, but basically different expectations going into the marriage. So Mary Jo, how do people who are about to get married avoid these pitfalls? Or if you're already married, how do you work things out?
Well, the bottom line is you have to decide when you get married, rather than thinking, I'm going to the altar to make this commitment, and if it doesn't work out, I'll get out of it. You have to talk to your fiance and say, listen, this is the plan going forward. I don't believe in divorce. I'm not a divorced person. If you're a person that even entertains that idea of a divorce, I'm not the one for you. When you get married, you say to each other openly and honestly that there's no problem in this marriage that we won't be able to solve working it out together. Now, there are some issues. The only one I saw of your top 10 list that I have to agree with 100% is any kind of abuse. If there's any kind of abuse, then you have to do what's safe for yourself and your children, and you have to get out.
Well, Mary Jo, I want to talk to you a little bit more about that, but I also want to get to Nancy. Now, I know that one of the things that happens in marriages is that inevitably one of the partners try to establish sort of the dominant relationship. Nancy, is the marriage too far gone by the time a person seeks your help?
Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. I think sometimes just going through the divorce, having a petition filed makes people understand this is really serious. This is the end of the road. And they really start seeking all options available to them, whether that be counseling. Frequently, drug and alcohol evaluations are done, anger management courses, and they'll start pursuing some of these methods on their own. And if they don't, the attorney can go into court and ask for these things, and we can try to frame up something that may actually lead the folks back to reconciling instead of going through with the divorce.
And of course, one thing that helps, whether you're the divorce attorney or the psychotherapist, is you're asking both couples, or rather both people in that relationship, to seek counseling before it's too late. Now, Mary Jo, at the very beginning, usually somebody, as I was trying to allude to earlier, now that I'm able to get back to you, someone tries to establish a dominant relationship. in the past, because of our society, sometimes it seems like the woman has to take a sort of subordinate role to the men. Is that still the situation?
Well, more and more what we're seeing is, you know, first of all, there's a myth. It's that the man has the dominant role about divorces. Most of the divorces are initiated by the woman, and basically women are going back to work. More women are college educated than men now. Women have good jobs, and that's probably one of the reasons there are more divorces, is women are saying, I'm not putting up with this anymore. I know my mother lived with this or my aunt lived with it, but I'm not going to. So I think when couples are together, what you need to know is if there is a divorce, 99% of the time, you hear a voice inside your gut saying, you know, this marriage is not going to work. Until you hear that voice, you better do everything possible to make this marriage work. And couples that come in and say, I'm sorry, we just grew apart, I'm sorry, that is not an excuse. If you grew apart, you can grow back together.
All right, Mary Jo, let me interrupt you just so I can get Nancy to have the final say. In the gallows humor that we were talking about earlier, sometimes they say it's cheaper to keep her than to get a divorce. How true is that?
Well, I think that can be true, and people need to consider I find it amazing people will come in and pay a retainer for me, but they won't take the time to go on a romantic trip with their spouse, or they won't take the time to invest in a good counselor. And so it just depends on the case, but that can certainly be true.
Try to make it work.
That's right.
Nancy and Mary Jo, thank you very much for your insight on this very interesting topic, to say the least.
Thank you, Mike.
And here are some of our early results from our text poll earlier this evening. So far, an overwhelming majority of you, 95% yes, we do give up too easily on marriage. Only 5% said no. We'll bring you an update on where the numbers stand in our second half hour.